serve African-American men and women engineers in the nation. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome. And last but not least, Dr. Snowden, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. TJ Snowden, Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Morehouse College, the intersection of leadership and service. And what is a fun fact about us is that we are the #1 producer of Rhodes Scholars amongst all HBCUs.
#1 production came up a lot in y'all's conversations. That's really exciting. So I will turn it over to Brianna to start with our first question for our panelists.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to ask everybody except Jared. Sorry, your question is coming next. If you guys could briefly describe a history of your university or institution, just to kind of give us a big recap.
Do I go first again? Okay, cool. All right. So with Xavier, Xavier was founded back in 1925 by a nice lady named St. Catherine Drexel, who wasn't born as St. Catherine Drexel. She was born as Catherine. Some of you may know Drexel University. Her family actually helped to found or did found Drexel University. And she came from a very wealthy family. And she ended up becoming a nun within the Catholic Church, ended up starting her own order of nuns called the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, who had a purpose of ministering and aiding people of color. At a point in time when it was a bit unpopular to do so. And so they traveled around the country, opening up different schools, primarily elementary, middle, and high schools, and churches for people of color, primarily African Americans and Native Americans, and then eventually made their way down to New Orleans and opened up Xavier as the first college or university, fully accredited back in 1925 for African Americans and Native Americans as well. And 90 plus years later, we are still here. So yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Sydney, would you go next?
You said Sydney, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay, I was like, wait, I think I heard my name. So again, North Carolina A&T State University. So we're actually founded in 1891. March 9th, 1891 is actually our date of birth. So we're actually going to be celebrating 130 years this year. So we're super excited about that. But so North Carolina A&T is a land grant university. So basically the city of Greensboro received funding many, many years ago to fund a school in the area. But of course, it had to be first for African-American students. And one of the major perks of the institution, it had to focus on agriculture or manufacturing. So when you think of North Carolina A&T, of course, the A stands for agricultural, which is the A in our name, if you will. And the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences is actually our founding college here at the institution. So again, this year we will be celebrating 130 years, and we're super, super, super excited about that. Just the progression from back then in 1891 into where we are now, being the largest historically Black college and university in the nation.
Thank you, Sydney. TJ, would you go next, please?
Sure. Morehouse College was founded on February 14th, 1867 in the basement of Springfield Baptist Church. We were initially known as the Augusta Institute before moving to Friendship Baptist Church and then changing our name a few times before coming to Atlanta Baptist Seminary and Atlanta Baptist College until we finally settled on the name of Morehouse College after Henry Lyman Morehouse, a huge benefactor to the college as well. And so we've been around for 154 years, just celebrated our anniversary last week. Last Sunday, actually, to celebrate such a momentous occasion. And so we have, for 154 years, we have been the only historically Black private liberal arts institution that services young men. And for 154 years, we've been producing a number of leaders in every field of human endeavor, whether it's politics, business, as well as banking, finance, you name it, we have someone in there. And so wherever there is a place to be led or a field to be led in, there's a Morehouse man there.
Thank you so much. And Sandria, if you want to wrap us up.
Yes, so Savannah State was founded November 26, 1890 in Athens, Georgia. We are the oldest public HBCU in the state of Georgia, been around for 130 years. We just celebrated 130 years this November. And we are then later moved a year later to Savannah, Georgia. So really great to be in the oldest city in Savannah, as we are the oldest institution of higher learning in the city of Savannah. Great history with our first president, Major Richard R. Wright Sr. He is one of the founders of National Freedom Day, and as well as many HBCUs, when they use the phrase, tell them we are rising, he was the one who pushed that for HBCUs when we started emerging into the 1890 Land Grant Act.
Thank you all so much for briefly sharing your histories. I know there's so much that you could probably tell us about the history of your institution. So thank you so much for sharing. For this next question, I am going to start it with Jared. And then I would love for maybe one or two others to kind of follow up. I won't call on you, just feel free to, unmute yourself and respond when you're ready. This question is, what are some of your talking points about the cultural benefits of HBCUs during college and the benefits that students see as alum after they graduate? So Jared, can you start us off with this? I know it's a small question. Can you go ahead and start us off?
You actually have no idea how big of a question that is, because it's the concept. It's the question that we hear often all the time. Are HBCUs relevant? Are they here for a purpose nowadays? Do they still matter? And the biggest thing about HBCUs is that they are the comfort level for an individual looking to not be walked hand in hand through college, but to have the support so that if they fall back on something that's going to keep them from hitting the ground. We are definitely proponents of something much larger than us. HBCUs continuously change the culture, and they become our own version of a renaissance every time you step foot on the campus. They have been the most influential part of someone's success story, because it doesn't begin, I was in this great job and it was just so amazing. It began on the campus of Xavier University of Louisiana, on the campus of North Carolina A&T, on the campus of Morehouse, where I became that individual that became that star that shot far beyond my expectations. I was on a podcast the other day talking about this, and we said it best. HBCUs become that stepping stone that allow you to see above your expectations. And it gives you that sense of pride, that purpose, and that reason for feeling, you know what? I'm here. I am not a number. I am a person, but more importantly, I'm writing my story.
So Jared, I agree with you. And having not come from an HBCU background, actually having only worked here for about 2 years, HBCUs give students the opportunity to just be unapologetically Black, right? As Jared said a bit earlier, it's not a number. And then when you're at a larger institution where you have a student ID number, where you're identified by those 9 numbers and a barcode, and not to say that the other schools, in particular HBCUs, don't have those, but you're in a space where it's just large enough for you to kind of stretch your legs and grow and do a lot of great things and be a stepping stone, but it's small enough to where, you have more of a relationship with not only your peers, but members of the staff, faculty, administration, where it's a lot easier to kind of reach out and touch those folks and feel that you are supported and yet you are in a place where you belong, as some larger institutions, right? You kind of have to seek out that community. You have to go and find the Office of Institutional Diversity at some place, or you have to find where the students who identify closest to you and what that club looks like and all these other things. Whereas, at HBCU, it was built with you in mind, right? Now, it was and everything that's happened over the 90 plus years that we've been around. It has been it's a safe space. It's a safe space, but it's not a cakewalk, right? Because you're gonna have, similar to any other institution, you're gonna have those opportunities where you will be challenged by professors. You'll be challenged by some processes and operations that you'll find that you and I'll put it into in kind of Greek terms. It's almost like you have a process as you're going through, you know, an HBCU. Being Greek myself, just like, okay, you know, as I'm looking at students as they are, you know, matriculating to the school, and just the things they have to either overcome or navigate, and they've never had to navigate that before. And when you come out on the other side, similar to what Jared was saying earlier, you know, you have such a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment. And it's certainly a badge of honor when you go into any place with your Morehouse sweatshirt on, with your Xavier, with your A&T and your Savannah State sweatshirt on, and that conversation that you have with people is different, right? They talk to you about experiences and stuff that you've had, and you know, they can talk about homecomings from 20 years back and classes where the professor probably taught them, your mom, and the student that's coming out, you know, and those are the types of conversations that you may not be able to have at other places. And so, you know, it like I said, it's a starter. I can tell you, I've worn this Morehouse sweatshirt in the airport and probably got more conversations about just, you know, about the Morehouse experience and what Morehouse is like and what it's done for young men, and just, you know, in the culture in general, as opposed to if I walk in the airport with maybe a UGA sweatshirt on, and then the conversation I have is about football.
I think that's definitely a big factor. And I tell people, especially when you talk about the foundation of HBCUs, the family aspect, we always talk about that family aspects of when you go to an HBCU and how invested they are in their students. And not to say that other institutions are not invested, but you really sense that, you get that sense of family environment, and students becomes their home away from home. You get many aunties and uncles, as Jared says, they become your home away from home. And so when you are doing right, they praise you, but when you're doing wrong, they're there to correct you, get that behavior change, and then elevate you to where you need to be. We talk about where our students come, that diamond in the rough, and HBCUs are really that polishing factor, So when you are stepping across that stage, when you're getting to that next level, you are going with that sense of pride, like, hey, I am totally prepared for whatever the world may bring it to me, whether it's a social aspect, an economic aspect, everything about who I am now at this point. This HBCU has given me that great, amazing foundation because they really cared.
So Jada, I'll add one thing and I'll kind of let you go. You know, even with the idea of HBCUs, just because we are historically Black, right? That doesn't mean that the institution is devoid of diversity, right? Now, mind you, 95% of the folks that are going to be on campus look like us, but what we do have is diversity in experiences, diversity in cultures, where we come from, you know, because I'm from Louisiana, and so how I talk and what I eat and what I bring to the table looks different from a person that comes from the state of Georgia or comes from another, you know, part of the country. And even though we, you know, look alike, and we can probably both say that we're Black 9 times out of 10, like there's so many stories and stuff that we could share, that we could take back and say, man, I think differently about someone who comes from another part of the state or another part of the country, because my stereotype of students or people who came from that area sounds like this, right? When I first moved here to Georgia, if I say I'm from Louisiana, the first thing people think, you're from New Orleans, right? Your accent sounds different. No, I'm from North Louisiana. And mind you, although it feels like two separate states, it still is like, okay, you sound a bit different, right? Where's your baby? Nope, I don't talk like that, right? Y'all get it, right? So that's something that I think that is really important about this, you know, HBCU experience, is that, you know, just because we all look alike don't mean we come with the same story.
Thank you, TJ. And when thinking about those things and kind of looking at schools outside of your home state, can you guys kind of talk about some innovative or unique programs that are really specific to your institution? You guys mentioned it a little bit in your introduction, but if you could kind of expand upon those, that'd be great.
So I know for Xavier specifically, we have 3 specific offices, and these are actually offices that I utilized when I was at Xavier as a student. And so the first one being the Student Academic Success Office. And so for any student that may be considered a deciding major, that's where their advisors are located. And by the way, every student is assigned an advisor who will know your name. and who will call you if you don't go and see them. But for that particular office, that is the office that governs over students that may need help academically. And so we understand that when students first arrive, they may not have every single academic piece that's needed to make up the puzzle for success at Xavier. And so we try to add those pieces to them via that particular office. We, in a short sense, we call it the Say-So office as an acronym. But that office helped me, especially during my second semester when I had to get my mind right after my first semester of college. And they got me back on track academically. That's exactly why that office is there. We also have another one called the Center for Undergraduate Research and Graduate Opportunity, which is the office that will help students in regards to finding research both on campus and off campus. Because we know realistically, everyone won't be able to find research on campus. The campus is only so big, which is why we look for those opportunities past our campus that students can get to, whether that be in the New Orleans area or whether that be within the entire country over the summertime. And another office that's near and dear to me, which actually helped me to get to the career that I have today, is the Career Advancement Center, which helps students with trying to find internships while they're in college, and also trying to find jobs for while they're in college as well. But even more so, aiding students with preparation for going into the job market once they graduate or applying to these jobs before they graduate. And I remember at one point, they sat me down and went over my resume line by line, and they quizzed me on questions that would be asked of me during a job interview as if I was actually in a job interview. And so the different things that we do outside of the classroom that a lot of people don't always realize. Yes, you have your academic departments. Yes, you have your professors that can help you during their office hours. Yes, you have your student mentors, but a lot of HBCUs often have some type of office or offices that are non-academic, that are there to keep students and keep students on track or to help them to get on track for their futures.
Okay, I'll take a stab at this question. So just like Bryan said, a lot of our institutions have different support systems in place for all of our students here at whatever college that you go to. With similar names, we have the Center for Academic Excellence, which highlights all of the support and resources students may need when they come into the institution undecided or undeclared. They're paired with an academic coach to assist them as they matriculate that first year. However, we do require that students have a dedicated major by the end of their freshman year. So that's something that our academic coaches help them with. And of course, we also have the career services, which is doing a phenomenal job, missed the pandemic, if you will, with bringing the opportunities to our students. And like Bryan said, a lot of the times they're sitting down with you or via Zoom, if you will, and going through those resumes, giving you sample questions. We actually use, I'm not sure of the system, but it's actually like students can log in, get some help with a few interview questions, and then they record their responses and then go back to review them on their own. And then they'll also point out different things like, well, maybe speak up about this or slow down when you say this and different things like that. So those are just a few of like, I guess the resource kind of innovative and unique programs that we have. But if you want to get into the type of majors, I definitely want to touch base very quickly about some innovative majors that we have. Of course, you know, earlier I was saying we're the largest producer of African-American engineers in the nation. We also have bioengineering, biomedical engineering, computer science, which we think of computer science as an engineering course. A lot of the times students or other institutions may have it as a science course at their institutions, but computer science being an engineering course is actually unique to A&T. Also, we have motorsports technology. So students who are interested in working with NASCAR and different things like that, we can actually help you and assist you with that process. So that just names a few of the STEM related programs, but we also have an art side of our institution, which I like to highlight that as well, because when you think of A&T, a lot of the times you think of STEM, and STEM only. However, we do have a very awesome arts program where our students are in Broadway plays and they're highlighting in different TV shows and different things like that. So I definitely wanted to point that out as well. But those are just a few of our very innovative programs and unique programs that we have on our campus.
Just as well, we have a lot of resources here for our students. We have our Right Choice mentorship program that gets students set up with mentors. Our academic advisement has where you get an academic advisor, but you also get a faculty coach, someone who is going to help you in that transition of getting everything that you're going to need before you walk across that stage. A peer mentor, someone who is going to be that junior or senior who is probably walking that same line of post-secondary things that they're looking to do to kind of guide you, help you some of those missteps. And that's a big thing for students to be able to see someone ahead of them already doing some of the things that they are really looking to kind of do, and it really helps the transition for our students. Freshman year experience for us has been really revamped. Definitely talking about those resume skills, those the 30-second elevator speeches, how to present yourself when you are in front of people. So that's a lot of things that, makes that experience very unique to make sure that you are getting those tools that you need to be successful. And I will just talk about a couple of the unique things for us. Again, I mentioned about our marine science program. We are the only institution in Georgia to have the aquatic research for our students to do research for marine science, as it is all a part. The water is all of a part of our campus, so that makes us very unique. We are one of 3 institutions in Georgia to have an accredited mass communications program, and we have our own radio station where our students do, and it is student-led, as well as we have our own TV network where our students, for those students who are thinking about broadcasting and those different things, engineering research that our students are doing, as well as in the sciences. Business for us is very big. People don't think about Savannah State and think about business, but our business program is internationally accredited. It's less than 20% of schools in their southern region to have a internationally accredited business program. So those are just a couple of things of highlights as far as our academics.
So I'll try to be brief. With Morehouse, and I think with like any other institution, but specifically Morehouse, because we are an all-male institution, there's a brotherhood automatically built into it. And so when you think about coming into as a student from high school, coming into Morehouse, we have a new student orientation program that indoctrinates you in the Morehouse way, right? It's called Welcome to the House. And so it's prior to COVID, it had been like a 3 or 4 day, expose on, what it is to be a man of Morehouse, which is what we call our undergraduate students before they graduate into a Morehouse man as an alum of the institution, but just showing them that there is a community for them that's available of a little bit more than 2,200 men who are vested in their experience, but also their success as a student. Thinking about it from an academic standpoint, we have a number of great programs that are really moving the needle forward across the country, and specifically if we're talking about our local area in the state of Georgia. 3 things I'd like to highlight about our most important programs that we have, particularly majors. The business program is one of our second most popular major, where we have a number of students major in business administration with a number of concentrations in marketing, accounting, and their finance. And there are a few others that will allow them to kind of move into some of these spaces where they can use that degree. Additionally, we have a dual degree major where the student goes through what's called a 3-2 program, where they would do 3 years at Morehouse, gain a bachelor's degree in an applied science, particularly applied physics, and then go into a concentration of engineering at a number of larger institutions, both private and public. Your Georgia Tech, Auburn, Dartmouth is there, University of Michigan is one as well, and there are 7 other colleges that we have on that docket. And also we have a very exciting program, the CTEMS program, which stands for Cinematography, Television, and Emerging Media Studies. I mean, if you want to break into film or the TV industry in Atlanta or across the country, what better place to do than come to go through that particular program and be in a place like Atlanta to have access to that. If you could think about some of the television shows that were filmed on the campus of Morehouse that have come over the years that focus on Black college life, we've been like The Yard, and there are a couple of others that we had Morehouse students who were not only in front of the scenes but also behind the scenes helping shoot that. And so we certainly want to make sure that we engage our students in as many different talents and disciplines as possible. There's a new journalism program that we're currently working on now that engages sports as well as journalism, combining those two. And then we also have some additional things that are coming available as well, particularly our online courses. And there's also going to be a new MOOC course that'll come online that combines social justice and leadership in sports, that'll be taught by Chris Webber, 5-time NBA All-Star and current announcer for the NBA. So a lot of great things happening, a lot of great opportunities for young people to get engaged and connected. And one of the great things I think about all of our institutions is that we take care of our own, right? It's especially when you're thinking about post-graduation opportunities. Morehouse looks different on an application when a student is going into a job where there's a person from a Morehouse or from a Spelman or from any of our, HBCU friends, where it says, okay, we understand, your experiences, how you, handled, the transition from being a college student now to a graduate, and now looking forward to being a productive member of society. And so I think it's just that camaraderie, just that system that's built in for us to kind of help all of us kind of come up in our professional and personal lives that really help students that go through our institutions.
Thanks so much for sharing about y'all's signature programs and exciting programs and things like that. This next question actually came up a few times during registration. There were questions around conversations around students feeling like they're maybe not Black enough for an HBCU experience. Also ways to support students who formerly went to PWI, a predominantly white institution, high schools before going on to an HBCU and having nerves about fitting in. So because Jared couldn't answer that last question, I would like to start with Jared, but I'm sure a few others would like to chime in after.
Definitely. Actually, TJ said it best earlier, and I often use this when I worked at Xavier, when I was working with high school students. HBCUs define diversity in the truest sense. So you're not just talking about the genetic makeup of students on campus. You're talking about defining diversity within your major, understanding the opportunities and the differences in which path you can take under a major, defining your career goals, defining the opportunities you have on a lot of the things that you have relevant on your campus. So when it comes down to HBCUs itself, and it comes down to understanding, are you meant for it? An HBCU was built to cultivate and culture a student, give you an opportunity to define and reset what it is that you want to be in life. So HBCUs are extremely beneficial to anyone who deems themselves ready to walk the halls. That's the biggest thing. The first step is yours. From that point on, you become part of the family. One of the best things about HBCUs and all of the things that all of my colleagues just stated is that there was one major sense behind everything. You had resources, you have opportunities, you have everything that you need from start to finish. The only difference is how much ambition do you have, and are you willing to extend a hand? Because a closed mouth does not get fed. It's rather you feast or you starve. And the best thing about HBCUs is that you're always invited to have a seat at the table.
Thank you, Jared, for saying that. And I'm just reiterate what TJ said earlier and Jared. HBCUs are, it's no such thing as Black enough. You come as you are, right? Because regardless, when you leave, you're going to be a completely different person. I'm going to go ahead and say you're going to be completely different. You can come in as an introvert. You were going to be an extrovert by the middle of that sophomore year because they bring out the best in you. And again, I'm talking from my own personal experiences, right? So I went to a predominantly Black high school, went to A&T, and I'm still, at that time, I was still making myself into a different person because it's going to bring out something completely different in you. You may be the Black student who's the introvert, the Black student who's the extrovert, it doesn't matter who you are, but when you leave, you're going to be completely different because I think uniquely HBCUs give you an opportunity to recreate yourself, not for the worst, of course, for the best. I remember when I first started out at A&T in 2016, I had recruited a student who's about to graduate now, and he is completely different, like in a great way. And I'm so excited to be a part of his journey, to watch him, bringing him in as a freshman and to him about to graduate from A&T, and just the transformation in him. It's just like looking in a mirror, like, wow, that was me many, many, many years ago as I'm transitioning into this completely different person. So it's not a question, are you Black enough? Are you ready to step out and be someone else? Because because that's exactly what's going to happen. You know, you can start your matriculation as this person, but I promise you midway and once you leave, you're going to be a completely different person, but you have to be willing and able to grow and to want that for yourself, right? And I'm sure all of my colleagues on this call, we can echo that when we started the journey and when we ended the journey, we were completely different people, but we're so grateful for those people, right? And then as we're, you know, navigating our professional lives and our careers, we're still growing and we're still molding based off my education many, many years ago, you know, and so it's one thing I just love about HBCUs, and not just being a product of an HBCU, but I believe in the transformation and the change, you know, and I believe that anybody can change in that transformation. And you don't have to come in being Black enough, because it doesn't matter. That's not a thing, because once you leave, you're going to be a completely different person. So, you know, I don't want anyone to think, or when you're talking to your students, it's not a matter of being Black enough. It's a matter of being who you are. You know, you're really going to find yourself there. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about the experience, is you're going to really walk into your light and you're going to find yourself. And again, like as you can see my face, the passion is there, because it's just such an exciting journey to see them go through that transition, and then to personally go through a transition like that. I mean, it's just the most beautiful thing that you can ever imagine when you're stepping into who you're supposed to be and who you are. So it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing.
I actually love this question, because as a student who went to a predominantly white high school, I have that firsthand experience of that fret of thinking that going to this HBCU is not going to be the right move for me, because I'm not going to be loved or accepted. When the complete opposite happened, they were so ready to bring a part of me and the confidence level, the person who I am today, and some of the panelists, and like Bryan can tell you, the person that this loud, bold person who I am today was not Sandria of 2010 when I came into Savannah State. Like the timid person who would, you know, just wasn't really sure of being in her skin as a Black woman, because I really didn't have a lot of that because of where I went to high school. When I started going through the motions in my sophomore year, my junior year, my senior year, like seeing the transformation, and even now reflecting about who I am as a Black woman today, the transformation, I could tell if you could see me back then to see me now, that you could see really the cultivating that HBCU really gives you, that level of confidence that you don't think that you have in yourself right now, and you're really trying to find who you are. That's what HBCUs do. They gave me so much of myself that at the time I didn't know that I was missing, and being able to get that while I was here, that's the best experience about everything that of me attending Savannah State.
So as a counselor, you know, when I hear that from a student, I'd even pose back, like, what is Black enough to go to HBCU, right? Because the door, it's almost like the Black church, right? The doors are always open, right? Everybody got a seat. Everybody can come. Everybody can take part of, you know, this experience. You know, I didn't have an HBCU experience. I went to an all Black high school. Didn't want to go to HBCU because I was like, I don't want to be in an all Black environment, and that's probably one of the things I hold a little bit against, because man, I really should have gave it a shot just to say, okay, because, and being from Louisiana, right, you got your Grahams, your Southerns, you got Xavier, you got, you know, Dillard. Had a scholarship to even go to Dillard, but I decided to go and do something different. But now, having worked at an HBCU for over 2 years, it's like, man, this is a really great place. Mind you, you know, if there's certain things that you're accustomed to and you're kind of looking for, right, it ain't gonna always be roses, right? You have to look and see what the beauty is for that place for what it is, right? You know, Savannah State being by the sea, Morehouse being in the middle of it, literally the smack dab the middle of Southwest Atlanta, and how close we are to all the things that are all Atlanta. You know, Xavier and all the other schools that are down in New Orleans and where they are. And so, you know, I certainly would think any student, regardless of whether they came from an all Black neighborhood, or they came from a diverse neighborhood, or a neighborhood where there aren't many people that look like them, I think there's always just a space. Because again, we talk about diversity. I got some Jack and Jill kids, but I got some kids who know how to do some things, right, that kids should know how to do, right? But when they come to a Morehouse, or they go to a Xavier or a Savannah State or A&T, right, they see some things that are different. They see some people, they see adults, they see peers that are out making moves that they like, man, you know what? That's a little different from what I come from, or this evolves my thinking about how I can be a part of, you know, this space, and then take this out to someone else and be another light to a student who may come from a background like mine, or may, you know, or may not know anything about HBCU. So I don't think when a student asks, am I Black enough to go here? Am I, you know, my experience is going to be the same? Am I going to be ridiculed? Nope, because I'm sure, 100% sure that there are students who have similar thoughts and feelings about it. And again, we're all a community, so we're going to embrace one another for our differences and learn from those. You know, everybody has those experiences where they went off to college and made a friend that was from another country or another side of the world, and or another, you know, state, and that was a friend that they brought home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, because it was like, man, this person has such an impact on me. I want my family or my friends to learn about, you know, where other folks come from outside these 4 or 5 little blocks that we used to run in, right? And that was the baseline. That was the thing that allowed students, I know a number of students, to kind of catapult themselves to thinking outside of just their neighborhood or their small, you know, little box, and then becoming the people who they are today, to be successful, to be leaders, to be in the forefront, and hopefully going back to their own communities and taking students there with them. Because at the end of the day, and I think what HBCU do a great job of, is exposing students to different, you know, to a lot of different things. And I know our institutions can do that, but I just think HBCUs do a really good job, because you have students who look like you, who, you know, who understand your experience and can say, hey, come with me, let me show you something different. And then they could be that bridge that kind of, you know, brings that other person along in the next group of students.
Can I say one more thing to add to this conversation? We've kind of hinted at this with the answers that have been given to the question. But what hasn't been overtly said is HBCUs have this natural tendency to make you, not in a bad way, but to make you find your tribe. And it's like, you know, just by you being you, you don't change anything about yourself. Just by you being you, you naturally end up gravitating towards people that mesh with you. Sometimes via trial and error, just depending on, you know, who you might gravitate towards. But like, for instance, with me, I started Xavier as a chemistry major, who also really enjoyed playing music. And so the people who I naturally gravitated towards were people that played music at Xavier. Those ended up becoming my close friends, even to today. The funny thing is that out of that group of people, I found 2 cousins of mine. And that core group, now they're my business partners. After we've all finished up at Xavier, we're close friends, but we're also business partners in a business. And so those people that you tend to naturally gravitate towards, it's gonna, well, first of all, I'll say it's gonna happen. You're gonna naturally gravitate towards some people, whether it's the folks who stay next door in your residence hall, or whether it's the folks who are in the same department as you, or might be in the same clubs or organizations as you. But what it does require is a little bit of you to be involved. It just requires you to talk to someone else, just talk to them. And that tribe will naturally tend to gravitate around you. And it just happens. It just naturally happens.
And let me tell you guys, I'm thoroughly enjoying the conversation, and I think a lot of our viewers are as well. But unfortunately, we have a little short on time, and I want to get to some really important questions that we've gotten a few times from reoccurring questions about financial aid and cost of attendance, and making it really affordable for students. So a lot of the times, especially working with my students, we'll say in the state of Georgia, they have some financial aid help on the tuition side of things, but have a gap when it comes to room and board and other finances. What are some merit-based scholarships that you guys have to offer for those students? What are some other avenues maybe they can pursue to fund their education while there or before they get there, and kind of some impactful stories about that as well?
Okay, I'll start really quickly. Sorry, I'll make it very quick. So at North Carolina A&T, we have a few different full ride merit scholarships that cover full tuition fees, room and board. Of course, typically, like when you're navigating the admissions process, we require that these students apply very early in the timeline, if you will, or in the year. And then they have their own set of dates when the application will open up for the scholarship, as well as deadlines. So I think when you're navigating college and you're trying to get the money, apply early is probably the most important thing. So A&T, we're also a state funded institution, meaning there's a difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition, a huge difference, if you will. So, you know, for my out-of-state students, they're always looking for the money, of course. And a lot of those merit scholarships are for in-state and out-of-state students, but it's important to be a very competitive student to get into A&T, as well as, you know your dates and deadlines. And that's research they should be doing right now. So even sophomores and juniors, let's go ahead and start doing that research now, because I'm telling you, senior year is going to turn around very quickly. It's going to come very quickly. And I don't want anyone to be like, well, I didn't know where the money was, because it's always been there. Also, utilizing the departments as well. Once the student is accepted into the university, I always tell them, go ahead and call the department, see what type of funding they have that year, you know, for you. They also have full ride scholarships that are not directly associated with the Office of Financial Aid. But then I also say there's a lot of outside money too, a lot of outside money. You got the Thurgood Marshall Foundation. You have a lot of different ways where you can get money to go to school, but you just have to be very diligent in your search. And I think students today, they're like, oh, you know, maybe 30 minutes to, you know, fill out a few applications. Absolutely not. It's going to take at least an hour a day, if you will, a few hours a week to really sit down and start plugging in the computer off, not on your phone, but on a computer, if you have it, of course, you know, to make sure that you're applying for these scholarships, because there's a lot of money out here and we understand the gap of, you know, what financial aid or, you know, what kind of aid you get and how that can assist you. And it's still a very big gap in there as well. But there's a lot of resources that students need to utilize. But again, that's our jobs, is to help you find those resources. So, you know, a quick reach out to the admissions office, or even, you know, at A&T, reach out to me, like, let me help you navigate that, because it's a lot of money. You just have to speak up if you want it, if you will, and again, be very diligent about your search. I think one of my colleagues said, closed mouths don't get fed. So if there's something that you need, let us know so we can try our very best to help you find that.
Yes, the Coca-Cola Foundation scholarships are out there. UNCF's website is not just a scholarship option, it's a search engine. It's a full search engine for scholarships. So utilize that tool for your students. On top of all of that, look at ROTC programs. Look at your fraternities and sororities. Proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I was a former regional director of education. We brought out 100 scholarships in a single year, and they're given out each state, each city. You have a lot of opportunities, and don't be afraid to nickel and dime scholarships. That's $500 more than you had in the beginning, because let me tell you, 10 dimes make $1, and that can make the difference of what you need. So please use every resource.
Also use alumni chapters. I tell students all the time, if there is, especially if you are look at and see, does that university you're looking to has a chapter in your area, because they give a ton of funds. And like Cindy says, be very diligent about your scholarship process, right? Because it's the times where I talk to a student and I give them the full layout from A to Z about how to make this process seamless. Their junior year, we have a full conversation about how this transition is going to be seamless. We get to senior year and I don't hear from you until March, and you're wondering, well, why can I not find the money that I was looking for? You've missed that opportunity by waiting. The money comes first come, first serve. And so you have to be very diligent in this process. Understand that public HBCUs are for Thurgood Marshall. Private institutions are for UNCF. So know the difference between where you're looking to go and where the funds are going to be going. Look at your parents' employers, because sometimes they have scholarships that they just don't advertise, but the money is there. And for those who know, they get their most bang for their buck. But you do have to do your research, and applying for 1 or 2 scholarships is just not going to cut it. I tell my students, if you're not doing at least an hour a day of applying for scholarships, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there are ways to go to school debt free. Because I have students right now who are at Savannah State who they get money back because of how much scholarships that they have. I will brag on one of my students. 2 years ago, he got so much scholarship money back from all of his scholarships that he got. He was able to buy himself a new car, a new cell phone, and still have some money left over to play with, because he did everything the right way. And just like Cindy alluded, Ask your admissions officers. I tell students all the time, let me be that resource for you. But I don't know what you need if you don't tell me. And you can't wait till the last second to say, hey, Miss Mason, I need $5,000 because I don't know where in my pockets I'm gonna find you $5,000 tomorrow, but I probably could have found you $5,000 2 months ago. So definitely have those conversations and be really intentional about those conversations that you're having with us.
So I'm gonna put my financial aid hat on because I worked in financial aid prior to coming over into admissions. So what I tell students when they ask me, about opportunities that are available, and everybody kind of took all the answers that I would have done and said in this little spiel about alumni chapters, fraternities, sororities, because a lot of that money goes untouched because we don't have enough students to apply for those. Counselors, I would certainly suggest getting these kids to start working on these applications sophomore year. That is not too early. Freshman year, even, because there are a number of these applications that require, community service, they require essays. It's never too late to work on an essay, right? Whether it's college admissions or whether it's a scholarship. Also now, when I was in school, we had the big books that you had to buy that were $20 a piece, and you had to pop open and write to them. And all. Like now, these are apps that are on these students' phones that you can go in, you can click, say, I'm left-handed, I got one eye that closes, one eye that doesn't, and there's a scholarship that goes because there's a scholarship for a kid with a left hand, and that one eye is opens and the other one doesn't. So there's so many things that are available for our students here. It's all a matter of going out to seek it. And mind you, we are resources, but it also takes some intuition and initiative from the student as well to say, hey, let me go out and look for it. Let me not wait on it. Let me not, mess around till I get to my junior year, my senior year, trying to figure out where is the money, because I was one of those students, so I can speak directly to that and say, man, I wish I would have thought a bit different about what my financial plan is going to look like. And that certainly will help students think about, debt when it comes to it, because college, regardless of whether it is, the cheapest thing in your state or whether it's, $50,000 a year, it is an investment. So even whether you take out loans or whether you take out a scholarship or you get scholarships, you can't waste that money, right? Because all the scholarships are not going to be renewable, right? There are the one-time scholarships. So you got to figure out where that next $1,000 or $2,000 is going to come from the following year. So it certainly, behooves the student and their family and their counselors to help make a plan to figure out what that process is going to look like for that student.
So I want to ask one quick question before we end. But first, I wanted to see if Jared, since you've had experience on the high school side, and I think a lot of the people asking about helping students kind of bridge that gap and finding those challenges are high school counselors. I'm wondering if you can speak to experiences you've had working with students before, and then I'll kind of wrap it up with one really quick question.
Perfect. Actually, and I'll answer one of the questions that someone just put in there, the graduation rates, why do students not finish? It's a process. Starting in high school, how many students know that their ninth grade year is the first time we look at their grades? How many students understand that their ninth grade year is the foundation for the GPA that goes into their consideration? We have to make sure we're educating them early and that they have all the tools available. Like TJ stated earlier, making sure that they're working on scholarship considerations early is a big key, because that means instead of waiting until senior year to read up and try to understand what they are, they walk in knowing and having the materials ready that they can turn in. One of the biggest things about selecting colleges and selecting what's your process is choosing your major. So students are not successful in college because they rush to say, I want to be a doctor. What type of doctor? I want to be this major. I want to be a businessman. In business, you have accounting, you have business administration, you have finance, you have a lot of different routes you can go into. Understand what's your major, understand what your niche is. Start asking the right questions to the right individuals, and the timing is everything. That is what really gives you the best opportunity for your students to be successful. Making sure that they have these questions early. They understand the lingo, they understand the language, because college has its own unique language. Giving them that vocabulary lesson, even though they're probably tired of vocabulary. That's one of the biggest things for high school students in helping them. When I helped my students, it was guiding them towards scholarships so they understood every type of scholarship. Understanding that the essays that you write in class may be the exact same essays you need to turn in to apply for these scholarships. So instead of throwing away your papers at the end of the year, how about you keep it, get it revised, and make it perfect so that you now have your portfolio that you can hand over. And that's another part to it. Build your portfolio. College is the first business decision that you make in life because the bill is yours. The best thing that you can do is build your resume so that you can get the job. And that's what we want our students to start doing. That's what I always encourage them. Build your resume starting your freshman year. This is my GPA. These are my test scores. This is the community service. This is my writing sample. Am I ready?
Yeah, it's similar to what Jared said, is about the time and investment that the student puts in. And so I'll talk about low graduation rates from a financial aid perspective. It's that not understanding how your financial aid is tied into your academic prowess while you're in school, right? So the student that comes in that may have a great GPA from high school but doesn't understand how to navigate the process of being in college, whether it's studying, because there's some 4.0s that get there, don't study, and it's a 2.0 that first semester. We've all seen that, right? And it's not that they aren't smart kids, but it is now you don't have a teacher or a counselor hovering over you to say, hey, you need to get this work. The professor or the instructor who is there, they are there to teach you the lessons so you can grasp the concepts. It's up to you to figure out how you do that. And so taking advantage of some of those office hours, the academic centers that are on campus, those types of things to help you understand, okay, I got to have a 2.0 to maintain Pell Grant or student loans or my institutional scholarship. Then you get, if a student is not in that mindset and doesn't have that understanding, then you get to that point to where that midpoint, that fall or spring, then you talk about satisfactory academic progress, right? And that totally throws things into a tailspin, because if you don't have that 2.0, then your financial aid is going to be in jeopardy. And if you don't find a way to get back up to either the GPA requirement or the progression requirement, which is 67%, you're gonna have some problems, right? And that impacts, again, all federal as well as institutional aid. And so just understanding how how the money you kind of put into it and the effort you put into it are going to be impacted impacts those graduation rates is really going to be key, because then you start talking about student debt. So when you don't have federal aid, you don't have your institutional scholarships, that's when you go start talking about private student loans. And that also kind of helps students snowball into that large amount of debt with large interest rates, because we weren't thinking about this stuff on the front end.
Thank y'all.
Oh, I just want to say one quick thing, Jay. When we talk about graduation rate, and it's definitely something that I always tell students and parents, because they're so stuck on this thing called graduation rate, right? When they look at institutions, and I tell students is that you have to be mindful of how we look at a graduation rate and what HBCUs cater, the social and economic backgrounds of our students' life happens, right? Where students end up having to stop and take out, or even a student that may come in the spring, not start in the fall, they're not going to be counted in a college graduation rate. So whether or not that student who came in spring, graduated in 3.5 years, beat out their peers in fall, is still not going to be counted in our graduation rate. So I do like to tell students and parents, especially when you're looking at graduation rates, that doesn't define you as a student. So do not let that deter you from going to an institution with a low graduation rate, because that's not your success story. That's not to say that that's going to be your story. And when you think about what we as HBCUs and the backgrounds who we cater to, first generation students who come already in college with a disadvantage. So when TJ mentions about financial aid and not knowing these processes that goes in Jared, when you have this disconnect and students don't think about that the buck starts at 9th grade year, this number that you're looking at as far as graduation rate has many factors in it that people do not take in consideration, and that looks negativity on the university, when entirety in some instances it's nothing that we can do about.
Okay. Sydney, did you?
I think Sydney had one more point that she.
Yes, please. I was trying not to, but Sandria, you really said it. When you think about graduation rates, I always say, like when someone asks me that, my next question is, not necessarily why that's important to you, because once you have your eye on the prize and you know that I'm gonna get there at the end, walking across that stage in 4 years, all that matters. You know, not to say that the person beside you, we don't know their story. Everybody has a story, right? I don't know why so-and-so decided to take a semester off for family reasons, for personal reasons. You know, that's not my business to know that. But what I do know is that I'm walking across that stage in 4 years, right? And so I think that you, like she said, you know, don't not go to an institution because you feel like their graduation rate is low, because that's not your story, right? And she also explained how, you know, understanding what plays into a graduation rate as well. You know, and so it's about, again, creating your story. You know, we're all together in this, but I'm sure y'all have heard the very cliche story, look to your left, look to your right, everybody won't be here at the end, whatever that looks like. Everybody has a story, everybody, and you know, while we're working and we're doing schoolwork, life is still happening at home, or life is still happening to us outside of the classroom. And I think that plays a factor in, for a lot of people, what's next for them. Students they go study abroad. You know, they may pick up a major, a minor, double major and a minor. You never know, right? But again, as long as your eye is on the prize that I know I'm getting there in 4 years, let that be your story, you know? So, you know, that's a very good question. A lot of people ask it, but you have to understand it's so much bigger than what is the graduation rate. There's so many other questions that can be asked in conjunction with that question, if you will.
Thanks y'all so much for speaking to that question. I want to end on like a really happy note. And so I'm going to ask you if you could please just describe your institution in one word, and then I'm going to pass it off to Brianna to conclude. So we're going to go alphabetically. Bryan, you're up first.
I would say in one word, Xavier is home.
Sydney?
I was still thinking about my word.
Sure, we can come back to you if you want.
No, it's okay. I'm ready. A&T is bold. We are bold. We're ready for whatever. You know, we are here to knock down any barriers, you know, silence any stereotypes. We're just ready. A&T is a very bold institution, in whatever way you think of the word, that is who we are.
Thank you. Jared, you can probably talk about Xavier.
I'm going to cover all of the HBCUs that exist, because the one word is legendary. It's the impact that the world remembers.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. I'm forgetting the alphabet for a second. Sandria, you're next.
Yes, I'm going to say impactful. We are impactful and intentional about where we are now and where we want to be with our students.
Thank you. And Dr. Snowden, bring us home.
Morehouse is iconic. 453 years, we are the intersection of leadership and service, where we teach young men how to go out and be leaders of the world.
I can't thank you guys enough for your time, your energy, your transparency, your honesty. We had probably about 8 questions that were pretty lofty that we did not get to. So what we're going to do is send those questions out to you guys as panelists, and then get back to people that have asked those questions. They were really actually great questions that we want to cover for everyone. For everyone that's actually exiting the call, be sure to check us out next month for Women in Leadership. It's our next SACEC webinar. We're going to be talking about some obstacles that women face within higher education, but also some really great opportunities for women as well. So again, thank you so much to the panelists. We so appreciate you and your time, and we hope you guys have a really great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.